everyone, this is Annalisa, and thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation on Journey to the Goddess TV. Since filming this interview, a few things have come to light that Maya has asked me to add an addendum to the end of this video to address some key information. For example, at different points in this conversation, both Maya and myself use the term gypsy. This has been and continues to be a pejorative term, although this was not our intention. And the proper term is actually Roma or Romani people and culture. So rectifying this here is a matter of respect and dignity. Therefore, throughout this video, I have added in the footer where I typically write Journey to the Goddess and then underneath that the name of the episode with the person I'm interviewing. I interrupt that by adding in the footer C note with the number of the note that I am referring to. And these notes, Maya's added commentary, can be found at the end of the video after the credits, I have labeled it Maya's After Notes. So please check there for an added and more nuanced discussion and further commentary on some of the points that we discuss in the interview. And I will include links to each chapter in the YouTube text box to make it easier for you to go back and forth between the part of the interview that we are discussing and the cross-reference it with the note that's in the addendum. And of course, finally, if you like this video, then please hit like, please leave us a comment, we will respond, and please subscribe to the channel. All of your engagements help me get these important and interesting and I think invigorating conversations on the divine feminine out to a wider audience. Thanks again and enjoy today's conversation, The Feminine in Flamenco, with Maya de Silva Chafe. Hi everybody, this is Annalisa with Journey to the Goddess, where I regenerate ancient feminine wisdom for modern women. Today I am with the lovely Maya de Silva Chafe. Hello. Hi. Maya is a flamenco dancer and teacher, and in fact, she was my first flamenco teacher, so I'm so lucky to be sitting here with her today to talk about flamenco.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here too.
Okay. So, the first question I have for you is actually if you could give me a little bit of information about you and your journey to becoming a flamenco dancer.
Okay, I was born in Santa Barbara, California, not far from where we are right now. And every summer they have a big festival called Old Spanish Days Fiesta, which kind of celebrates the Spanish families that settled the area. Actually, they came in and stole the land from the indigenous people, but that's a whole nother interview. And the fiesta, a big part of it happened right across the street from where my dad had rented a house. And so that courthouse garden was like my front yard. And they had these amazing performances every night, and I was enchanted with the costumes and the whole thing of being on stage. And I was like, I have to wear those dresses somehow. And then I'm like, well, okay, so I really love dancing. I really love swimming in the ocean. I think I could probably make more money dancing than swimming in the ocean. So when I got to college, they were offering flamenco. And it was one of my requirements to take ethnic dance. So I thought, well, let me get this out of the way right away. It sounds kind of fun. I know my mom did it and she had a lot of fun, so let me try that. And I just loved it so much that I kept taking it every semester. I would build all of my classes around that flamenco class with Eva Encinas at the University of New Mexico, Albuquerque. And it became such an obsession that I ended up getting a double major, dance and theater, and a lot more doors opened for me in the dance world than they did in the theater world. So that's how I got started.
Wow. And how long have you been dancing? If you don't mind.
I don't mind. Let's see. I am 60 and I started when I was in college at age 19. So that makes 31 years. 41 years?
Yeah.
I guess that's right.
Yeah, 4 decades.
41 years. Yeah, 4 decades of dancing.
Let's mention too that you've danced and taught in Santa Barbara, but also in New York City for a long, long time.
Yes. I am a teaching artist. I've been a teaching artist for probably all of the time that I've been a dancer. And along with studying, continually studying different things, I love to teach. I love to share the art form that I love with everybody, students of all ages and sizes and races and genders. You know, flamenco is a human art form. It expresses the human condition. So I am a teaching artist. I'm a teacher. I also love to sing. I'm studying how to sing flamenco and how to just be a better singer for jazz or rock and roll or folk songs. I like to garden. I like to cook. I like to sew. There's a lot of things I like to do. I want to learn to paint better.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Amazing. So my next question is about flamenco proper now. I know that it has a long and rich history, but can you kind of give us a summary of flamenco, what it is for those people who might not be familiar?
Okay. Yeah. So flamenco is not just a dance form. It's an art form that encompasses a music, a song, and a dance. The roots of flamenco are mysterious because it is oral tradition. It has been taught from generation to generation by families that didn't know how to write down music, certainly, and many of them could not read or write. So people in Spain would learn lyrics of songs and riffs on the guitar from relatives, from their parents or their grandparents or their uncles and aunts. Flamenco was born in Spain, in specifically Andalusia, which is the southern region of Spain, which was Arabic territory for more than 600 years. But many, many different cultures influenced the formation of flamenco music and dance, including Arabic, indigenous Iberians, which already was a huge mix because you had Vikings and Visigoths and different groups of people that nobody even knows where they came from, because Spain is such a crossroads of the world. But also there's a lot of Gregorian chant influence that you'll hear in the music, the cante, the singing. You'll also hear influences from Jewish cantor. You'll hear influence of the Islamic priest calling the Islamic faith, the Muslim faithful, to prayer. And let's see, there's other influences. The gypsies came from Rajasthan, Pakistan, and slowly migrated into Spain, and they brought a lot of their own rich ways of interpreting any music that they heard in any country that they were traveling to. So the gypsies really found flamenco amazing, or helped create it, we don't know, and made it grow into something more rich and varied and passionate. And I cannot neglect to mention the influence of the Caribbean and the journeys between the old world and the new world, and the profound influence that the Afro-Americans and Afro-Caribbean people really had on flamenco, because all of the rich musical history of Cuba and Puerto Rico and what was Hispaniola but is now Dominican Republic and Haiti and even Central and South America has had on flamenco. So there's a lot of influence from African groups there too.
That's really just so profound. When I just listening to you tell that the weaving of all of those cultures
So
into
much. It's so complex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like any other complex thing. You start looking at it and then you realize, oh, I'm just really scratching the surface. And you found out that how much you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So, as far as the feminine in flamenco, there are many, many things to say. And something that came up for me a moment ago when you were talking is this adoration for women in this dance, in the cante, from the outsider perspective, in the culture itself. And there seems to be this strong kind of matriarchal groundedness in it. We were just talking about matriarchal cultures before we started filming. So I'm wondering if you can speak to the feminine in that way, in the lineage and the mothers.
Definitely. Well, it's a dichotomy because especially in gypsy culture, you have a very male-centered, the men are the ones who say what's going to happen, and if you're a gypsy woman, you do what your husband does and what your family requires of you. But that's very different from flamenco as a whole. And if you ask about the feminine potency in flamenco, it's great because women are strong in flamenco and we're allowed to celebrate our femininity and our strength, and we're encouraged to come out and express emotions deeply in a way in flamenco that is not necessarily accepted in other forms of dance. Some certainly, but flamenco definitely celebrates the curves of the woman's figure. Although the costumes are ankle length, they're body conscious, and you get to see the hips and you get to see the bust, and you can see a woman that looks like old and fat, but then she gets up to dance and you're like, oh my God, she's a goddess. Because all she does is raise her arms, and you're the way she just can stand there
and embody that energy.
exactly, and take it for herself unapologetically. That's a beautiful thing about flamenco for sure. Very magnetic. It draws a lot of people to it. Not all of them can stick with it. It's a hard technique to master, but it definitely celebrates the feminine.
Yeah, I mean, that, I think, for myself and my own journey to find a self-expression through movement and dance, I had searched for a long time. As an actress, I had tried different dance forms through my life. And I had seen flamenco when I lived in New York. I remember walking by some of the dance studios on my way to an audition, and sometimes, I think it was Ripley Greer, there would be flamenco classes. And I'd look in and I thought, wow, there was definitely an exoticism to it, but it was also very like, I just felt the energy in my body, and I was like, I want to claim that feminine energy. And when I began taking your class, I kind of knew that was it. There's something for me in that reclaiming of my power, that ownership of my sensuality. And it's been quite scary for me to own my sensuality around other women. So it's been also healing for me to dance in class around other women.
Well, there's definitely a sense of camaraderie that we develop when we study together for a while. We start to share the same frustrations and challenges and victories. But there is something really elementally flamenco feminine. And I think it has to do with the way that we connect with the earth.
Yes.
The Mother Earth.
Yes.
And we use the floor to bounce off of and to create percussion and the vibration of the palmas and the golpes on the floor. Somehow, like, you feel this vibration through your bones, and you're connecting with the weight. You're using gravity. You're using the floor. The floor is your friend, as opposed to ballet, where we're always trying to like get away from the floor and defy gravity, or tap, which is similar in percussive nature, but it's all about sort of the surface. You don't like stamp down into the floor and tap like you do in flamenco. And I find that connecting with the earth it's a very grounding thing, whether you're on a wooden floor or you're walking on grass with your bare feet.
Right. It's like you're like communicating with the mother. It was my first or second class with you when you brought up that connection to the earth, and I knew that you were my teacher. I was like, oh,
well,
yes.
I'm super flattered to have inspired you to follow flamenco. You're not the only one.
I know,
but
sure.
You're an important one. And it's always like a little victory whether or not a student goes on to love flamenco long term or just have a short experience with it. Because when people can get to that point where they're like, okay, I'm getting this in me, I'm making it part of me, and it's a little victory, to like reconnect with a simple thing, which is creating a beat with my body, whether it's stamping or slapping my leg, or a combination of stamping and slapping, or palmas. You become part of something bigger, although you're also getting back inside yourself, not in your head. I've had to tell students before, okay, you don't understand this, right? So I want you to get your head out from between the rhythm and your feet.
Yes.
And another thing is, when you're really connecting with the floor, when you're really doing golpes, the proper way. I feel like it's not just to the surface, but it's like you're stamping in it. It's as though your leg is a sword and you're stamping down through the floor, down through to something deeper. And every time you stamp, it's as though you're striking into the floor, burying your foot.
Yeah, it's it's pretty profound. And again, thinking into my own journey with it, I'm learning to own my anger and my expression of my anger. And the floor can take it, the earth can take it. But it is really scary to own that and to release it out of the body. But I also love that flamenco accepts that and asks that of you.
It requires it of you.
Yes.
If you're holding back, then your footwork is not going to have the kind of quality that it needs to have. You have to let go and let the rhythm embody you, not embody you, but carry you. You become like a channel if you're really connecting with the musicians and you're really connecting with the floor and losing your ego and losing all of those things that you worry about when you're putting on your makeup or you're getting your costume adjusted. You know, you need all of those things to feel ready to go on stage, or at least I do. But once you get there and the conditions are right, then you can really like lose yourself in the beat and lose yourself in the music, and the music flows through you. You just become like a channel. You don't even think about what you're going to do next because it's not a thought process. It's a instinctual reaction to the music and to the rhythm.
Okay, I'm sure you've seen the film Van Gogh. In one of the openings, I think it's the opening scene, there's a performance between the flamenco musicians and the Sufi musicians. But there was also something that I actually wrote a paper on in my Islam class, comparing the nature of the community aspect, where flamenco for me feels like it's like the energy goes out into the community and then like down into the floor. But the Sufi energy is like out into the community and it's all directed upwards toward the sky gods or the god, right? But I also got in that experience the spiritual thread that runs through flamenco. It's not simply just an aesthetic art form. There is something primal and spiritually like connected or running through, I think, through the dance, through the community. Do you have any feelings on that?
Well, yes, I think this sense of community is really important in flamenco. And I think that, I mean, you can create it by yourself, but you really do need people to create it with you.
Yeah.
You need a guitarist, a singer, and a dancer. It's great to have a percussionist too, but in a pinch, you can do without it.
Yeah.
So it is already a community. And what you can create bouncing off of the singer and the guitarist can be something much bigger than you can create on your own. And it's very sort of inexpressible. And that's how I feel about the spiritual aspect of it too. I can't really talk about that.
Yeah.
It's something that I don't feel an authority to talk about, but I have had moments in flamenco where I feel connected to divinity, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when the muse is moving through me, and it's not me deciding to move in a certain way. It's the music and I guess my training that produce this wonderful improvisation. I hope it feels that way. I don't know what it looks like because I'm subjective, not objective. But I think that it is a community thing that is very difficult to replicate with people who don't know. Yeah. And that's why it becomes sort of like a cabal, like you are in and you know, and you can carry your own weight, or you're not. And if you're in that party at the beginning of the night and there's a few flamencos looking around waiting until things are going to get good, you better be able to carry your weight with palmas or jaleo or singing or playing an instrument or being real quiet and subtle, because otherwise you're going to be what they call the dead wood, that you want to get rid of the dead wood before you can have the really good fiesta.
Right. Like you're only as good as your weakest link.
Exactly, because you don't want anybody extra in there,
like ruining the vibe.
bringing in their cameras and drinking up all the booze. No, everybody's got to contribute, So in a spiritual way, dancing, whether it's flamenco or another dance form, because I've studied a lot of modern dance, Horton specifically, and a few other dance forms, but I've really connected both with modern and with flamenco. And when you're really in the zone of whatever, dancing full out and feeling the music and participating in it almost seamlessly, this is a spiritual moment. This is as divine as I can get.
Right.
That, or being in nature, like swimming in a lake in the mountains or in the ocean. These are places that I feel most at home and most connected with what I would call my spirituality.
Yes. While I've trained in flamenco, I've simultaneously done some training in classical Indian dance, which most people are like, Bollywood? No. It's actually, which is fine. That's really hard.
So
Bollywood is really hard.
So is Kathak and Odissi.
But those are like very clearly the divine feminine is in every expression of those dance forms. And actually, I started those dance forms before I tried flamenco. So, but there's still something, the spiritual aspect, especially the divine feminine aspect, has her own unique expression for me in flamenco. Let me explain to you what I mean. So when I think about archetypes, so goddesses for me are like archetypes, right? And I like to use the Jungian definition of an archetype, which is a universal energy pattern that shows up in different cultures in different forms or images, right? And so humans get to, whether we're conscious of it or not, we embody these different energies at different moments in our lives. So a goddess may have her own independent energy, if you believe that, but it can also be a psychological and embodied experience. So when I'm dancing flamenco, I might not be aware of it at the time, but in one moment I might be embodying the goddess of love, or I might be embodying like a Durga or a Kali energy with that fire and that anger, So that's I think one of the ways that I see the divine feminine expressing herself through flamenco. When those energies.
Definitely, yeah. But there's a very tender side of flamenco too, and a very delicate side, and a very sort of the wispiness that you find in ballet. You can find the moments of that in flamenco too. It has to do with the capacity of the dancer, though, because I think that, this may just be my bias, but I think that people that are more highly evolved on a spiritual and psychological and social level have more to give in flamenco. Does that make sense? I think that if you know how to open your heart and share yourself with people, that you will have an easier time being successful as a flamenco dancer and connecting with the audience, if that's what you want to do. Some dancers aren't really interested in connecting with the audience. It can be a very internal thing where you're just concerned with the other musicians. So, what we're talking about, the community, and then this other thing of being on stage, those are two very different manifestations of flamenco. The one that's in the community, where you get rid of the dead wood before the really cool stuff can happen, that's very different from presentational flamenco, which grew up around the café cantantes in the late 1800s. The cafés cantantes was when flamenco moved out of the social clubs, which were more private, and into a public setting where people could pay their money, come and drink their little drink, and watch the show. Mm-hmm. That is also, though, why some of the deeper flamenco forms end with a lighter form. Like you take your seguirillas and you're going to end it with a bulerías, which is much happier, and you could sing a lyric that was more up-tempo, because you don't want to end the soleá and the seguirilla, at least in that time, in soleá or seguirilla, because everybody's just going to go home and kill themselves. And you don't want that to happen if you want them to come back and pay their money the next day to see the show again. So
I see,
The
yeah.
audience changed us, and it
Mhm.
still continues to change us because we're always searching to be on the vanguard. We don't want to be old hat. We don't want to be doing something that people did 100 years ago, although some of those steps that were done 100 years ago, we still do them. And we put our own individual stamp on them, and we make them sincerely and authentically ours. And that's what keeps it fresh, because I'm not 100 years old, not quite yet. Anyways.
Now, I've heard duende used in conversations about flamenco. And do you feel like the duende plays a role in flamenco?
In good flamenco, duende literally means the little house goblin. So it's like a little imp that lives under the dust in the corner and is not always good, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what I was saying, when I feel like totally I lost myself, my ego went away, and I just became a conduit for the music.
Yes.
And the confluence of ideal events, no wardrobe malfunctions, no discomfort in terms of being tired or hungry, no problems with the floor or the sound or idiotic waiters walking back in front of, you know, there's a moment when the duende can come.
Mm.
All of the conditions have to be just right. And you can't engineer that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times why when people pull out their camera, there's no chance for duende. So duende is what I was saying that people feel is the spiritual side of flamenco. There's a very good article, essay that was written by Garcia Lorca on duende.
Yeah.
And Garcia Lorca, of course, wrote a bunch of beautiful poetry that got incorporated into flamenco. In the 20s, Lorca and De Falla created this competition that was in Granada, and it brought a lot of people who had done flamenco and had kind of fallen by the wayside, brought them back and elevated them into the stars that they deserve to be.
Okay.
So Garcia Lorca wrote this essay on duende that I recommend everybody to read.
Well, I will link it in the text box.
But duende is one of those things that we don't really talk about it. It's kind of like you don't name it, because then it definitely won't be here. You know what I mean?
I do. Got it. Well, I thank you for sharing even that much.
Well, I'm sure you discover your own duende. It's a very personal thing.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what your duende is. My duende is different from your duende. It's like Rashomon. You don't see or feel what I see or feel.
Yeah.
But man, when you're in a moment where everybody is in duende and you're in that party, you're like, oh my God.
Yes.
Your hair stands on end and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it sure was good.
It literally shifts the energy in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like, okay, tonight I'm going to go out and have duende. No, that's not possible. It's like a painter when he's like, he or she is like, all of a sudden everything comes together and the tree pops out, or the lovers show themselves in the tree.
Yeah.
In the painting. You can't direct that. It happens. Yes, studying your craft beforehand is a good thing. Yes, having all the right colors and the temperature of the air and people giving you money so that you can sit there and paint, all of that is good. But that might not, you might have all those things and you still don't get the good painting.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful things about flamenco is that it's a family tradition. And I was not born into a flamenco family, but I was born into a family that included people that valued art very much. My father was an artist for his whole life, and he made sculptures and paintings and appreciated music and color and nature. And my mother was a dancer. She actually studied those forms that you studied, Odissi and Bharatanatyam, and she appreciated that I wanted to dance, and she played great music at home too, and she taught me to sew and look at color and texture and how to design things and put them together and make them beautiful and relaxing spaces. And okay, so I didn't have a flamenco family. I didn't grow up with a guitarist father or brother or uncle, but But I learned to appreciate music from my parents. And hearing great music, whether it was Motown or classical or jazz or R&B, all or ethnic music, all of these helped me to have a musical mind, to have a musical intelligence when you talk about Gardner's intelligences and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for that. But when you come from a flamenco family in Spain, there is just no stronger background than that to come from, to come into the world as having generations of ancestors who have danced, who have sung, who have played percussion, who have played guitar or other, there's flute, there's harp, there's piano. Flamenco piano is one of the most amazing instruments. So the importance of family is super important because people learn so much from their forebears and their relatives.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that cannot be overstated. And there's so many important flamenco families in southern Spain that I would love to go back and study with some more. So that's what I had to say about community. Something that I wanted to say about celebrating femininity is that as a flamenco dancer, you really own your femininity and you really can embody it in a way that isn't possible in many other dance forms. Some, yes, belly dancing, East Indian dancing, probably Native American dancing, many forms that I don't know because there's so many forms all over the world that I don't know because I was born into a white patriarchal society. I'd like to study them more, but there's only so much time. But what I want to say about flamenco and being a woman is that you can really be inside it and own it. And it doesn't matter what size or shape or age you are or what race you are, because we all bleed the same color. And we all, I'm not to say that a man cannot feel his masculinity in flamenco. Absolutely. It's one of the most powerful, virile, egoistic, logical, spatial, rhythmic things that there are in the dance world. But there's something very special about flamenco, the way it celebrates our roundness, our sensuality, the wateriness that we have in us, and our large stature as givers of life in this world.
Thank you. It's like, if nothing else was said during this conversation, I think that is the most important piece. And I was like looking at your flower as you were talking. It's like,
not my face.
No, I'm like, I could see it out of the corner of your eye because, the rose is such a powerful symbol, such an important symbol throughout time and in many cultures of the mystery of the goddess or the feminine, the generative,
so many layers.
So many layers. It's like the mystery and the power of the feminine all kind of wrapped up right there. Okay, so there's also a connection between a flamenco and Mary Magdalene.
Oh,
right.
Tell me.
Yes. Oh, okay. So it's really has to do with the Roma people and their veneration for Saint Sarah in the south of France.
Oh yeah, right.
Right.
The Black Madonna.
The Black Madonna.
Yes. I have a friend who's been to that festival many times.
He's
amazing. Always trying to get me to go.
Oh, you should go.
I would love to.
Incredible.
Let's go.
Okay, we'll go.
Next year.
You're coming.
After COVID is over.
Yes. So Saint Sarah was either the woman that greeted the three Marys and their party when they got to France, or she was the handmaiden to Mary Magdalene that they had brought her with them from Egypt to France, or the other tradition is she might be the love child or the daughter of Mary Magdalene and Jesus. So, and we have Mary Magdalene as this, sensual woman.
She's like the opposite of the Madonna. Virgin Mary,
right?
Yeah. So she's by extension the not virgin.
Right.
Yeah.
And she represents this kind of sinful or this rejected feminine figure who's like redeemed. And so I wonder if some of those themes maybe come up within the culture of the singing or the lyrics. And I'd actually heard a song with Estrella Morente.
Mm-hmm.
There's a song that she sings in that film Flamenco, and at the very end of the song she brings in Magdalena, and I was like, oh my god, of course she would also be a patron saint for gypsies or for the flamenco culture, because she's this, beautiful, strong, powerful woman who's been denied or rejected. Anyway, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that.
It's a very interesting one. She was the reject. She was the one that wasn't good enough to get in the Holy Trinity or whatever it was. All the saints that they made later, she's kind of the one that they just like, oh, we got her in the bag, but we're not going to really talk about her.
Yeah.
I don't know all. There's so many lyrics in flamenco and so many poems, and so many of them are like very prosaic, or they're humorous, or as many songs as in English, there's that many in flamenco too. So I don't really know that particular lyric. I love Estrella Morente.
But it's not like Mary Magdalene comes up a lot in song.
I can't think of that one particularly, but there's a lot of patron saints involved in the gypsy culture, that certain ones are more popular than others. I really don't know much on that aspect, and I would hesitate to try to be an authority on something that I don't know much about.
Okay, that was really to satiate my own curiosity. Anyway.
I don't know. You're going to have to go to Spain and meet some gypsy families.
Okay.
I was there for Semana Santa, though, and that was a really amazing experience. Semana Santa is when they take it's before Easter, during Lent, I believe. And they take, I'm not Christian, so what do I know? I'm a heathen. They take their saints out of their churches and they put them on these big, huge, heavy wooden platforms. And the saints themselves are carved out of solid wood, and they're super huge. They're icons, and they take them out of the churches, and each parish, confrere, the men get under these platforms, and they have these massive rags around their shoulders and arms and heads, where they are carrying these massive wooden platforms, and they walk in a rhythm to a song that's called the saeta, which is very bum, 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 dum,
right, of course.
And so they're walking like ding, ding. And they practice for weeks before that. And if you happen to be in a car and you're driving through one of those small streets in Sevilla and you get behind a paso, you're not going to get where you're going on time, because it takes them forever to get there. And the same thing happens during Semana Santa. Every church has sent their saint out in the street. It doesn't happen all at the same time, but the whole town is paralyzed for a week. You can't do anything. Class is suspended. If you want to go shopping at a place, maybe you can get there and shop, but then you want to get home afterwards, it's going to take you a few hours.
Forget about it,
because you're like this with a billion people, and there's a paso coming, so you can't move because everybody's trying to see the paso.
Yeah.
So this is one way that religious fervor is realized in southern Spain. The week or two after that, and everybody during Semana Santa has been wearing black and these amazing black lace mantillas, and everybody in black, black, black. Then comes Easter, and everybody is so happy, and they put on the white lace mantillas, and everybody is just reborn. And then Feria happens, and it's sort of like this death and rebirth ritual that they go through every year. And I feel like Spain and Mexico and India have these closer relationships with death and rebirth than we do in American and Western cultures.
Oh, sure.
I'm wearing a Death's Head t-shirt today because the matriarch is also the one who takes the people away afterwards, after their life is done, after, who's the one who holds you before you die? Your mom, if you're a child, or you might see your mom when you're dying, or your daughter might help you through that. It's probably not going to be your dad.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So women attend those that are living and those that are dying.
Yeah, very traditionally in so many cultures, even still today. They're one of my favorite goddess scholars, Maria Gimbutas. She puts forth this image that she's found in a lot of the cultures that she's done digs. She's an archaeologist. And so the image is that the womb and the tomb, that the tomb is also the womb of your birth. We come from the earth and then we're buried into the tomb womb and we're somehow metaphorically rebirthed, or new humans are rebirthed out of, the decaying of our bodies. So I do really love that image of the mother goddess.
Well, Kali,
Yeah.
also, right?
Yeah,
She's got all
totally.
those skulls around her,
Yeah.
and all those arms to do stuff.
Yeah.
I chose a piece of music to dance to today
Yes.
because it doesn't have a lot of lyrics in it, but the lyrics at the end of the song are very beautiful, and that's what I would like to express. And they say in Spanish, Viene la luna y con ella mis sueños. Un mundo de amor y paz es todo que quiero. Here comes the moon, and with her all my dreams. A world of love and peace is all that I want.
It's like your prayer to us right now, to humanity, to the world. Yeah. Dance is prayer. I think that's a good theme to meditate on. So thank you, Maya. This has been a pleasure, and I'm excited to share with everybody her dance in just a moment. But in the meantime, can you share with people how they can find you online and how they can work with you?
Thank you, Annalisa.
Yeah.
It's really been a pleasure to be part of this Journey to the Goddess journey. I'm honored to be recognized as my own little personal goddess, and the power of the divinity that flows through me is just luck. I've worked hard. I live in New York. Sometimes I live in California. You can find me on Instagram at Maya de Silva Chafe, and you can look at my website. It's called mayadesilvaflamenco.com. I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me through either of those mediums. Thanks, Annalisa.
Thank you. And don't miss the opportunity to work with Maya. She will blow your mind, bring you back to your feminine essence, or help you discover it. How's that? la luna y con ella mi sueño. Un mundo de amor y paz, eso es lo que quiero. Tiene la luna y con ella mi sueño. Un mundo de amor y paz, eso es lo que quiero. Tiene la luna y con ella mi sueño. Un mundo de amor y paz, eso es lo que quiero. Tiene la luna y con ella mi sueño. Ay, 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 ay. Tiene la luna y con ella mi sueño. Un mundo de amor y paz, es lo que yo quiero.
Por la calle y a que le dé primito que perdone.